Thanks for coming out, everybody. Appreciate your time today. For the people that haven't met me, my name is Jimmy Fitzgerald, and I've been fortunate enough to be with ServiceNow for the last almost 6 years, and the last 4 years in this role responsible for Asia Pacific and Japan. So for the event today, we wanted to keep this, it's obviously a small group, we wanted to keep it fairly informal and interactive as we go. We wanted to cover just a few key things. One of them is just to thank you for your support during 2016. I think most of you were at the Now Forum. We appreciate you following us. We know you're helping take our story to the market for us, so we truly appreciate that. And hope that that can continue into 2017. So thank you very, very much for the support. The second was to just give you a brief update on ServiceNow as a business, trying specific to APJ and Singapore. And then lastly, we've obviously announced the results of a survey that we've completed globally with great participation from Singapore. We want to be walking through the results of that survey. So that was our agenda for today. But again, let's keep it interactive. When I get through my piece, we'll then hopefully sit down and go through some discussions, and we'll get the food on the table for you guys. So 2016 for ServiceNow, I think, was a very, very good year. We released our annual results just recently. As a company, we came in ahead of guidance, so we're now just short of $1.4 billion business, and on track to become a $4 billion business by 2020. And per our remarks in the earnings, that's fueled on a strong growth across all product lines and all geographies. So I think as a business, we feel very, very confident going into 2017 and beyond. Specific to Singapore, there's a couple of things we're very, very proud of last year. We talked about some of these before, but we achieved MTCS certification last year. That's the highest level of security certification that you can receive as a cloud service provider from the IMDA. So that's something we achieved towards the back end of last year, and it really goes to show, hopefully, our commitment to having the highest level of security in our cloud service from our data centers here in Singapore and across the globe. And it was a specific certification that was important to, I think, all companies in Singapore, but in particular as we start working with public sector. And then we had our Now Forum in November. We had over 600 attendees. Many customers, many prospects. Hopefully you heard from them. We had many keynotes. So we're really proud of the momentum that we're getting in that event. And I think the year before we were around 350 people. So to get to over 600 people gives you hopefully some insight into the momentum we're getting in the market. We had obviously a large percentage of people from Singapore, but we had people coming from countries all across Asia. So that was 2016. As we look into 2017, our message really has not changed. Right? We're the company that wants to automate the enterprise, and we want to do that through intelligent automation. So for us, that's a message that you're going to see in our go-to-market. It's our message you're going to see as we do new product releases, which we do twice a year. And you'll see increasingly in our business partnerships. So for people that might have seen earlier this week, we announced a partnership with IBM globally, a strategic partnership that's multi-year in nature. And not only does it bring together their consulting services with our platform, our automation platform, we're also bringing in their cognitive computing capabilities. So together we can have differentiation to our customers and provide better solutions to our customers. So you're going to see us continue to drive that message into the market this year. At the Now Forum, we actually released our prior survey into the study of work. Hello. That's Joy. Good morning. Hi, Joy. We just got started. So at the Now Forum, we released a study into the study of work. And we looked at the average employee in the enterprise and where they spend their time. And the survey was global, but it also included a Singapore component. And in excess of 2 days per week, people are spending on manual, unproductive administrative tasks. That was a profound finding that 40% of our work week is spent on administrative, non-value, non-productive tasks. If you look at a report from McKinsey, they believe of that 40%, 49% of it can be automated. You know, we see the automation platform really playing a key role in digitizing the enterprise going forward. So our role in life and our mission is really to replace those manual work patterns of the past and move to intelligent automation of the future. And that's what we're really focused on. Specific to Singapore, I think the report will show that it's becoming one of the highest growth cloud markets in the world. We're seeing that in our business, and I think the results of the survey will show the same. And that means that, you know, IT and cloud are playing a really critical role across the enterprise, and in many cases becoming the critical backbone of the modern company. At the Now Forum, we had the fortune of having the CIO of Broadcom do a keynote, and he talked about his cloud-first strategy, ServiceNow being a significant part of it, how it's driven IT to be kind of that trusted advisor of the company, and drove business differentiation for Broadcom. So as a company, if you follow them, they've done multiple acquisitions over the last 4 or 5 years. And one of the reasons they can absorb those acquisitions so fast and move to day one services and day two services is they're really driving this automation platform. A cloud-first strategy allows them to try and get that business benefit. Unfortunately, that's not all companies. So still, a significant number of companies are relying on traditional data center as opposed to really embracing cloud. And that's what really motivated us to do this survey. So we want to understand, what is the tipping point going from companies that are still reliant on that traditional data center to going to a mindset where they're driving a cloud-first strategy. And that's what the survey that we undertook globally was all about, and that's what we're going to go through the results of today. Hopefully that makes sense. The survey was completed in late 2016. We had 1,850 respondents. You'll see that we had a very large number of respondents from Singapore. So for a small country, that represents 12% of the respondents. So I think it's really great in terms of really understanding what's going on specifically in the Singapore market. That number of respondents was the same as Australia, right? So for a country that's obviously reasonably large in the Asia-Pacific context. It was focused on companies that are larger in size. So we focused on enterprises that are 500 employees or above. And it was global in nature. And the people we went after are IT, mid-level to senior level executives, DevOps, same mid-level to senior level, and line of business. So this could be the head of customer service, it could be the head of HR. So we went outside of IT. And the respondents are fairly equally weighted across those 3 different categories. We had 3 key findings from the survey. The first is each of you have had many discussions with vendors, customers, and your stakeholders around the cloud. And it's been something that's been around for a very long time. What we're seeing is it's now becoming a very real reality, and hence why we're talking about this tipping point from it's no longer hype, it's very real. The second is what drove this is actually this real acceleration of DevOps. And we'll talk some more about that. So DevOps as a philosophy, as a capability, as a methodology has really led the charge into this kind of cloud-first mindset. And the third finding is it drives new requirements of IT. So as an IT executive, as an IT manager, as an IT professional, the skills you had yesterday for that traditional data center are not the same skills that you need for this kind of cloud-first world that we live in today. And we'll talk about that a little bit more. The percentages here are specific to Singapore. So what this says is that in 2016, 44% of companies had a cloud-first strategy. When I started working in this region 4 years ago, you wouldn't typically meet a CIO and ask them if they had a cloud-first strategy. It is now very, very acceptable to, as you get to know a business partner, talk about, are they driving a cloud-first strategy? So 44% of respondents are actually at the point where they're driving a cloud-first strategy. So what that means is, if they have a business requirement that is driving a need on IT, 44% of the time they're going, we can do this with cloud, be that infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, or subscription or software as a service. And that's predicted to grow to 59% in 2 years. So we're really after going past that 50% mark on a cloud-first strategy across these enterprises. As a point of reference, the US was actually below the 44% slightly, so Singapore was ahead. And Australia was, I think, ahead of the 50%, just above 50%. So Singapore was right in there, above the US and below a market like Australia, which I thought was very, very interesting. And so what's driving this? So now what we're saying is that we really have reached that point where it's cloud first, and we believe that what's driven that is that this DevOps movement. Now, 73% of people are saying that DevOps drove this rise in kind of cloud-first mentality. DevOps, I think, can become a little bit like debating religion. It can mean many different things to many, many different people. So when we think about DevOps, we think about it's really focused on driving business value or business outcomes. It's all about agile, understanding what the business is trying to achieve, and achieving that very fast, in days, not weeks, weeks, not months, months, not years. Be willing to fail, not having clarity of requirement, being very, very agile. And the third component is cross-functional. It's got business unit involvement, it's got development, it's got operations, but it's everyone working cross-functionally to achieve an outcome, and not everyone worried about their little stovepipe. That's what we mean by DevOps. And DevOps has really driven this kind of cloud-first mindset. I've met customers that weren't quite cloud-first, that's why they were talking to us. And for them, as an infrastructure team, to stand up a server for a business team was taking months to get it to the spec and hardened and all the different things they wanted. Whereas now, if you go to AWS and you have a credit card, you get your infrastructure in seconds. If you're a ServiceNow customer, you can right-click and develop a new application. So cloud is really changing that dynamics and compressing the time to value. And DevOps is really leading the charge and dragging everyone into cloud. So that was a really, really important finding. 97% are in some way involved in DevOps, again, based on that definition. So on that line of business, DevOps and IT. So across the enterprise, most people are involved in some initiative that's around DevOps. And again, that comes back to we're really driving a specific business value for the enterprise. And the last one is kind of what I introduced. We're talking about DevOps here as kind of an operating philosophy and not getting very religious around kind of the boundaries of where it stops and where it finishes. So with that in mind, the next is, in this cloud world, cloud-first world, what's required of IT? And the findings, I guess, not too surprising, but 85% of companies that completed that shift to cloud first and believed that their current IT organization lacked the skills to be successful in that new world. So there's a change of skills and a change of approach required. And 92% felt that the traditional IT department can be replaced with cloud. It doesn't mean that IT professionals are replaced, it just means that the traditional view of what the IT department is doing is also being questioned. I think the good news is IT is not going away. It requires IT to really change and provides a great opportunity to become more strategic to the business. So 71% of people believe that this cloud-first strategy raises the relevance of IT to the business. So now we can get things done much faster. Business are much more in tune with what IT is capable of doing. They still need help from IT from a security perspective, from governance perspective, from an integration perspective. And 65% said IT is a critical component of any enterprise going forward. And no surprise, regardless of the company, I think IT is becoming a critical backbone to what we're doing. There were the 3 key findings from the survey. We talk about, what are the consequences of this. So the survey at this stage is completed. We're now kind of going into how ServiceNow is interpreting this and putting forward kind of our point of view. The first is IT visibility and cost predictions are more obstructed. So what do I mean by that? Many SaaS companies out there, they don't sell to IT. They go sell to a stakeholder in the business. So if it's a subscription or a software as a service company that offers something around managing exchange rates or foreign exchange within a company, they're going to go straight to a person in finance and sell that solution. They don't have to work through IT. If it's Salesforce, they're going to go to the head of sales and sell their solution. So IT is coming into the enterprise in ways it never did before, which it makes it more difficult to have that 360 degree view of what's actually happening within IT. And the second, I think you've all heard stories around how a company embraces AWS or possibly Azure. It goes on somebody's credit card, and a month later the CIO has a bill for $100,000. So it brings great value to be able to be agile to that point, but still we need to get to a point where we can start predicting the cost around that. So I think IT plays a critical role. And the priorities that came out of the survey here were, the need for IT to provide that visibility and that 360-degree view, and the need for IT to be able to predict that cost. The second consequence is DevOps is not going away, and I think IT need to embrace that it's here to stay, and it's of huge value for the enterprise, and really enable that movement. And that means that we're going to have DevOps teams stand up in specific lines of business, and the role of IT is really to enable them to be successful, to provide the required governance, to provide the required security, but really to embrace that movement and allow companies to be successful in really driving value faster to their business stakeholders. And the third is there's lots of microservices out there now. So there's a cloud solution for any business point, any business problem that you may have, right? So there's lots of innovation going into this. The result is there's going to be more and more vendors to the enterprise, not less and less, right? So you can get very, very focused point solutions that are of high value to a piece of the finance organization, or a piece of the marketing organization, or the IT organization, and so on. And as a result, there's going to be more vendors, not less vendors, and that requires IT to play this role around integrating these service providers. So there's a term out there in the industry around SIAM, service, integration, and management. And that becomes across all of the capabilities that you've got in your enterprise, internal and external, and all of these more vendors. How do you successfully onboard them? How do you successfully manage them across the life cycle? Because there's going to be more vendors, not less, and predominantly in this cloud environment. I think this is the final slide we're going to go through, but hopefully we can get into some discussion. We have a team at ServiceNow that's called the Inspire team. And we chose the word Inspire very deliberately because they go out into our largest, most strategic customers around the world. And what we hope to do is inspire our customers to do more. So we try to inspire them to drive automation, to drive intelligent workflow, to drive a cloud-first mindset across the complete enterprise. It's a team of around 100 professionals, many of them ex-CIOs, ex-management consultants. And what we did is we asked them, in this new world, what are the consequences and what are the 5 steps that IT can take to really make this transition? And the overarching thing here is IT needs to move from a builder to a broker. So gone are the days where IT needs to see themselves as the builder of systems and the operator of systems. So, this build mindset needs to change, and then I build it and I want to operate it. I want to understand how it's running. I want to understand its uptime and take responsibility for that. I think that needs to change to a broker mindset where you're understanding what the business stakeholders are trying to achieve, and you're bringing the relevant solution to that, and being the broker for things like security, compliance, governance. But it's a very, very different role for IT. And what we've laid out here is the 5 different steps that we believe will help an IT organization make that transition successfully. And the first is this movement into business services. So if I start on the left, what are the services we provide the business? I think historically, if you sit in infrastructure, you might think that your job is to provide servers. A business executive does not know what a server is. He doesn't need to know. What he does care about is, do I have a system that's available to me to process my purchase orders, or onboard my merchants if I'm in banking, or do I have email available to me 24/7? They don't want to know the layers that sit below the business service. They really focus on the business service itself. So IT really needs to go, what are the business services that IT provide, and really have that business service centric view, which really goes into the second one, measure what matters. Measure what matters around, let's suppose one of those business services is SAP. The KPIs around that are going to be very, very different, right? So is it compliant with my security requirements? Is it available? Do I understand the backlog of enhancements that I have? Do I understand the cost of running it on an ongoing basis? Are my business stakeholders happy with the service I'm providing? The stack that SAP may run on is irrelevant. It's really around the things that the business service are providing to the enterprise. The third step is not all leaders are ready to make this transition. So I think when we define what those business services are, what the KPIs are, I think we then need to hold people to account on, embracing these changes. And if they're still stuck in their little stovepipes of, the historic view of IT, they won't be successful. So really start driving how we reward people, how we hire people, and how we work together, focused on those business services and KPIs around them, and make sure that we're leading that change. Making IT matter, I think this is where IT has the opportunity to really become that trusted advisor. So by getting comfortable that they're not working in this data center-centric world, that their job is to understand what the needs of the business are and drive those solutions for the business. So to really get very comfortable being that consultant or that broker, and not necessarily the person that's building those systems or operating those systems. And the last step is, again, there's lots of innovation in the ecosystem. So instead of IT taking the view that I'm going to build it and I'm going to operate it myself, really take that service broker mindset, and unless it's your core competency or something very specific to that company, embrace that the innovation that's happening outside of the company, and bring in that solution from the outside. In the case of automating the enterprise, use ServiceNow versus trying to build that yourself. And in that way, obviously going to be much more agile to what your business are looking for, and add business value as opposed to this mindset of I need to build it and I need to operate it myself. I'm going to pause at that stage. To conclude, I think, what the survey is informing us is, first, we've reached that tipping point where many companies are now cloud first. We see Singapore and this market embracing that very much. That provides a fantastic opportunity for IT to actually not feel under threat by this movement, but instead actually embrace it and become a broker to the business, and really change to this mindset of what are the business services that I can provide, and then become a broker and guardian of those services to the business executives. Okay. I'm going to take a seat and hopefully people have some feedback.